and welcome to the Switch4Good podcast. I'm Alexandra Paul, here with my co-host, Dotise Vaush. Hi, Dotise.
Hello, everyone.
Well, today, Dotsie and I were chatting, and we realized that a lot of our listeners have been writing in, asking us for tips about going plant-based and being healthy and things like that. So we thought that we'd just share more at the beginning of our shows about our experiences and what we've learned.
Tips and tricks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what people want to know. Like the 1, 2, 3. Give us the steps.
You know I love that, Dotsie. You know I love it.
People after your own heart. Let's not go deep. Let's just...
So I'm not a coffee drinker, but a big thing with people is what to put in their coffee after, if they want to give up cow's milk. So Dotsie, tell us a little bit about that.
If you were a coffee drinker, you would need these suggestions because you like sugar. So you would not like the bitter black coffee. I'm just feeling.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't. You're right. It wouldn't be that easy for me to make the switch just to nothing.
So milk or cream in my coffee was the very last thing I finally removed, right, is in the cow's milk category, in the dairy category. I love a hot steaming cup of coffee in the morning, and I guess I'm addicted to it. I just have one, but I just really enjoy it and the flavor and everything about it. And so I just, it gotten to the point where I thought, I'm just not going to enjoy coffee anymore. I mean, that's just how it's going to be. I was using half and half, and I would try. All I would do was try it black, and then there was some other plant-based creamers that I was trying that just were not doing it for me. I was trying to transition over, which using half and half and half plant-based creamer, which I do suggest as you move along to try to see if I could get my taste buds to come about. But I spent a lot of time just very sad in the morning because I just couldn't really find anything. And what I really needed to do was just be a little bit more patient and wait for my taste buds to transition and wait for what we know as neuro taste adaptation to take place. So,
which means that you get used to it, and as our guest Phil Kogan said, after a while, he just thought it was the greatest thing ever, the plant milk that he chose, which was almond milk. And when someone, by mistake at Starbucks, gave him a coffee with milk, he just thought it was disgusting. He almost spit it across the room.
Yeah. It tasted really gross to him. So I finally did it. I finally just had, one morning I had an awakening. I just thought, Dotsie, I cannot stand here anymore and pour this cruelty and exploitation into my coffee. I mean, this is what I'm standing for, and I can't. It just does. So it's over. So, but since then, I have found my beloved Silk Soy Vanilla Creamer. And that's my personal favorite. But for everyone out there that is like, okay, I want to try, 2 or 3 of these to try, see which one's for me, because everybody likes something different in general anyway. My top 3s are the Silk Vanilla Soy Creamer. Okay. And you can get that literally anywhere. I mean, Target has it. It's everywhere. Walmart, everything. Next is Ripple Half and Half. It's really creamy.
Wait, there is a Ripple Half and Half? Because I know the Ripple
I know.
milk.
It even is in like a little tiny jar that's like, like half and half comes in cow's milk. Yeah. It's thick and creamy. And as we know,
because the Ripple pea milk is super thick and creamy. My mom uses it as like a treat on her fruit. Like she pours the Ripple.
Oh, brilliant.
She loves it. It's like cream, she says.
Yes, it is. So the half and half is even creamier, if you can imagine that, because pea milk by nature is like really kind of rich and creamier than some of the other nut milks. So the Ripple Half and Half, a lot of people love. And then Califia Farm makes a barista blend. Okay. And they make oat milk barista blend. They also make a coconut milk, almond milk mix barista blend that is amazing, but you have to like coconut. A lot of people don't like the taste of coconut in their coffee. I'm one of them.
So they could have the oat milk.
Exactly. Then you would do the oat milk barista blend. So it's brilliant what they've done there because, that's part of the problem. If you want the creaminess in your coffee, if you're just using a milk, it's not going to be thick and creamy enough, and you're going to have to put too much in, which then, just sort of deadens the delicious flavor of the coffee, which you don't want.
So my friend Tracy Gray, who listens to this program, but when I saw her, she said that she too struggled with the coffee thing and what would make a good substitute for her half and half. And she found that it was the Califia oat milk. Yeah. And then
barista blend, right?
Barista blend, oat milk. Okay. And then she adds some MCT oil and blends it and makes it even thicker. And she says it tastes just like half and half.
Major tip there. And that
Thank you, Tracy.
Can you tell me, I had to ask you earlier, what is MCT, just in case there's anyone
It's
like me.
medium chain triglyceride oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be healthy. Like the folks who do bulletproof coffee put the MCT oil in, but they also put butter in. So we don't want to do that.
No.
Okay. Do not
butter
do
in the
that
coffee.
kind of.
Please don't do that.
Could you do the earth balance in your coffee?
Oh, wow.
MCT
I don't know.
oil?
Now I'm going to want to try that tomorrow morning. I'll
Go
let you
ahead.
know.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know. Those are great tips for coffee drinkers out there.
Yeah,
so hopefully that helps some folks. And tell us about our guest. Our guest today. He has a lot of great tips for us to be healthy.
We're going to go way deeper than just coffee.
Yeah.
We're excited to have him. So our guest today, well, Alexandra, he's not your average family man with a wife, 2 kids, and a dog, although he does have all of the above. Our guest is Derek Tresize, and he's an accomplished former competitive bodybuilder, having won multiple natural bodybuilding titles. He's a personal trainer and author of Vegan Muscle and Fitness, which is a practical guide to eat seriously fit on a plant-based diet. He's also a true fitness nerd. He has a BS in biology, which we're going to exploit today because we're going to get some science out of him. So he loves, I think he specifically said somewhere he loves the science behind getting swole. He also equally enjoys getting lost in the fantasy world of video games, specifically World of Warcraft, where he met his wife. So we're going to dive into that. But thank you so much, Derek, for coming on the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I thought it was so funny when I read about the World of Warcraft and you meeting your wife, because here you are, this athlete, and you also play video games. That was sort of a paradox.
Yeah.
Or am I just being?
Are you being judgmental?
Yeah, stereotypical about who plays games, because I don't play games.
Not at all. On the game, because we'd make these big networks of friends and we'd chat with each other all the time, and I would get teased because I'd be like, hey guys, I have to log off and go to the gym. Be like, come on, what are you doing?
Join the couch potatoes.
My college roommates didn't get it either. They're like, all you do is work out and sit at the computer playing video games.
Well, you're.
That's not true. I sleep sometimes.
What is the World of Warcraft? Because I personally need to be educated. I mean, a lot of our listeners are gonna be like, "You got to be kidding me, Dotsie." But what's the game? What's the point of the game?
Sure. No, it's Well, I have to admit, I'm a couple years out of the loop because since we've had kids, it's basically impossible to keep up with it.
Plus, you see your wife every day, so you don't have to see her as avatars.
I don't have to see her in Azeroth anymore. I can see her on Earth. Basically, it's a game where you create characters, you create avatars, and it's an open world. So you can take your character, you can walk wherever you want, you can do whatever you want, you can fight other players, you can go on quests and battle dragons for treasure, you can team up with people to do those things. And there's no end point. You just do those things and try and get more money and better equipment and get a better team to compete against other people. And we were what we call PvPers, which is player versus player, where you go on teams and try to beat other people on other teams. And we were very good at it. My wife was my guild master, which is like the team captain. So,
that sounds somehow sexual for him to be your guild master.
They've used that. Oh, I love it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So she was your guild master, and she kicked your ass, huh? She was good.
Naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for her. Go Marcella.
I agree.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, we're going to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're going to, I want to go into a little bit of the beginning, and then you have a really awesome, incredible journey. And you've been plant-based since about 2007. And I read that you read the works of Colin, Campbell and Joel Fuhrman specifically. But you said scientifically it just made sense for you, which is not the case for a lot of people, right? They say read anything about whole food plant-based diet, and it oftentimes that doesn't make any sense. We've been doing this forever. We should, the way that we're eating now. What about it made so much sense?
Really, if I had to choose one thing, because there's many multifaceted answers to that question, but if I had to choose one thing, it would be comparative anatomy. I have a background in biology, and I won't call myself a zoologist or anything, but I know enough to look at the structures of our body, our jaw structure, our tooth structure, the enzymes in our saliva, our stomach, our whole GI tract, start to finish, is designed very much like a horse's or a rabbit's. We're a hindgut fermenter. We're designed to consume plants. We're not designed to deal with rotting flesh. Like the pH of our stomach cannot break down a lot of pathogens, which is why we have to cook our food. We are not designed to eat large meals like an omnivore has to have a really big stomach. Eat as much as they can from something they just killed because they might not eat again for a week. Our digestive system is just totally set up to subsist on plants, and specifically things like starches, beans, where we have a lot of enzymes to digest those foods. So that made a whole lot of sense to me. And also, if you just look at disease rates, epidemiology, that's what stuck out to me about Dr. Campbell's The China study. You have these people who are eating the most animal products, the most meat, the most dairy products, and they're having the highest rates of all these diseases of affluence, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, compared to the farmers who are eating rice and vegetables, and they have none of those diseases. It seemed kind of obvious when you look at the numbers. And there's a little irony there because I was Mr. Macho, vegetarians are silly and misinformed up until that point. So I did a 180.
So how did you even come to read those books? Because a lot of times if we're really staunchly in our own, side of the court, we don't often go over and start looking at things that might so kudos to you for that. Was it love maybe?
It was my guild master.
We're going to go back to that.
The woman, not only was she great at this, game, but she also was smart. She was a vegan, right?
Absolutely. And, like I said, to that point, I had made fun of any vegetarians I'd come across. And then here was this vegetarian who was articulate and brilliant and versed in science. And she said, read these books. And I was like, okay, I have to give it a chance. This is, I'm a biologist. This is biology research that I'm going to look at, so I'm equipped to do that. And I was just like, wow, why don't people know this? Both of my grandparents on one side died of heart disease. Both of my grandparents on the other side died of cancer. This is like, I am everyone in America. These are what's killing everyone. And so I decided then and there to do a 30-day, no animal product challenge. And I did it, and I was amazed at how much better I felt, and I was amazed at all the things you guys have probably heard many times, that I had more energy, I was able to work out harder and recovered faster. And what really shocked me is I didn't get weaker, I didn't get sickly, I didn't lose muscle mass. So from there, it was just a development. And I won't say that I went black and white cold turkey in day one. I still was like, I'm going to have a treat once in a while, but that quickly petered out because the food started being unappealing and actually disgusting to me and making me sick.
The treat foods that you would put back in when you had your gut hadn't been processing those.
Exactly. Yeah. Animal products, dairy products, all that.
What did that first week look like? Like when you said, okay, I'm going to do this 30-day challenge. It's like people might hear that. I think our amazing board engineer, Miguel, is interested in this journey and is like, okay, all right, tomorrow, 30 days. Like, what did that first week look like? Even the first 3 days, like what were you eating, or was your guild master cooking for you and you didn't have enough to think about it?
She was still, where was she? She was still in Virginia and I was in California. So I was on my own. With my roommates who thought I was crazy for a new reason. And I honestly was just reading labels, because up until then I was on a high protein, carbs are kind of scary, animal-based diet, because I loved weightlifting, and I thought that was necessary. And so I started just reading all these labels, trying to get as much protein as I could. Dairy. And so there was a lot of whole wheat pasta. There was a lot of tofurkey veggie dogs, things like that. And, tofu, obviously, or soy milk. And I was just cobbling it together. So breakfast was things like shredded wheat, because wheat has a lot of protein, soy milk. I don't really remember what I was having for lunch. Like I should have documented the whole process. That would have been smart. But I know I had a lot of whole wheat pasta, a lot of veggie dogs with whole wheat buns, and just throwing it together like that. Hummus sandwiches, grilled tofu on a salad, like a lot of that stuff. And first thing I noticed was like, wow, there's protein in all this stuff. Like reading labels, I'm like, who knew that pasta had protein? Who knew that, shredded wheat cereal had a bunch of protein? And so that was my first like immediate discovery. Is like, oh, okay, I'm not going to die of protein deficiency. And then when I threw it all together and just got as much as I could, like I said, even though I had no idea what I was doing and I was not eating a balanced diet and I was eating too much processed food, I still felt way better. I still noticed an immediate improvement. And so that to me was like, huh. And, even more so when I tried to have a treat meal afterwards, after the 30 days, and I was sick for like a day and a half and just felt bad. That was another aha moment, because that's not going to happen if you eat a banana. If you don't eat a banana for 30 days and then you go back and eat a banana. And so,
to your point of the first question, your answer to the first question, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm just like, what is it about these food that my body's rejecting it? And I'm sitting here reading the China study and feeling what I'm feeling. And it didn't take long for, even a musclehead like me to come up with like, oh, this stuff's bad for me.
So you were a competitive bodybuilder at that time?
I would call myself a recreational bodybuilder. I was a gym rat. I've been weightlifting since I was 12 years old, so a long history of that. But I didn't actually become a competitive bodybuilder until I met Robert Cheek of veganbodybuilding.com in 2010. I met him, and he talked me into competing. He's like, you have this great physique, you're young, you could get out there, you already have a blog, you could document the process and really show people what vegans can do. And I was like, I'm nervous, but I'll try it. So my entire bodybuilding career has been as a vegan. I'd already been a vegan for several years before I even started.
Oh,
and
wow.
you've been featured in Men's Fitness and all sorts of magazines, mainstream magazines too, alongside the meat eaters. So
were a lot of your natural, because you competed in natural bodybuilding, as opposed to the enhanced type. What do they call the one where it's like, anabolic steroids? I mean, the dirty one, or what is that called?
just bodybuilding.
They call it bodybuilding and natural bodybuilding.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay, there you have it, folks. Okay,
We know what the normal is.
So your natural bodybuilding competitors at the time, or even still, mostly meat and dairy guzzlers?
Especially at first, they were 100%. No one even believed me when I told them I was vegan.
Wow.
Backstage. The first contest I did, I was back there, and I competed with one other vegan, Ed Bauer. He joined me, and people backstage were just like, "Really? Where do you get your protein? What are you eating?" I mean, there wasn't that, maybe snide attitude some people might get, because obviously we were in shape. We showed up. We were muscular. We were lean. So there wasn't any disdain there. They were just genuinely floored, like how. But it's interesting. Through my career, the last time I competed was 2 years ago, 2017. The attitude from competitors that I've met at competitions has been radically different. It's gone from like, really? How? To, oh, that's cool. I have friends who are vegan. That's awesome. Good for you.
Nice.
It's been
awesome.
normalized. It's been accepted. Some people told me like, oh yeah, I only eat a plant-based protein because dairy's hard on my digestive system, or things like that. To whereas people, may not be full vegan, but they are embracing it and open to it, and it's normal and acceptable, which to me a huge sign of the changes of times.
We don't have leprosy anymore.
That's right.
We graduated from that.
So tell us, what did you do? Our board engineer whom Dotise just mentioned lifts weights too, and he would like to gain some muscle, and he's got a very, very high metabolism. And Dotise and I, of course, want him to go vegan. But so can you give some tips to somebody like Miguel who works out hard, but still, wants to know, what can I eat to help accentuate that and help?
And he's told us, just so you have this bit of information, it's a lot of chicken and rice.
Chicken
like
and
kind
rice.
of afraid to give that specific meal up. So what could be something that would be just much more nutritious and just as much protein?
That's a standard bodybuilding meal. They eat nothing but chicken and rice and broccoli. I know, because I used to do it. I'm not, I'm not judging. a simple switch is tofu. Simple switch has a lot of protein. It has omega-3s, which is really good. It has the phytosterols, which actually help keep your testosterone up and keep your estrogen down, which most people have that switched.
Yeah, most people think that tofu, which is from soy, is actually going to feminize them. You have a really good blog post on your website about this. Can you explain why they shouldn't be afraid of that?
Sure, absolutely. So phytosterols, which are plant hormones, exist in all plants. Soy happens to have a lot of phytoestrogen, which is plants' estrogen. Plants use hormones for their own business of survival, just like we do. And it just so happens that the type of phytosterols that things like soy or flax seeds or a number of plants have can bind to our own estrogen receptors. So people hear that and they go, oh my goodness, I'm eating estrogen. This is terrible. I'm going to, if you're a man, turn into a woman. If you're a woman, get breast cancer, you name it. This is actually really unfounded because just intuitively, which do you think would have a stronger impact on us, our own estrogen or a plant's estrogen? I mean, if you had to guess, you probably would say our own mammalian estrogen.
Right.
What soy is doing is if it's binding to this receptor site, the phytoestrogen that is, it's blocking that receptor site from our own estrogen. So that's called competitive inhibition in biology. There's only one place where the stuff can land, and it's going to be soy estrogen or our estrogen. They both can't land there. So it's blocking it, and since it exerts a weaker estrogenic effect, in essence, it's like getting less estrogen in your body. You might have seen, and of course this is just an anecdotal study. I can't recall his name. A gentleman on Instagram I saw did a 30-day challenge where he ate a pound of soy products every single day for a month, did a testosterone test before doing this and a testosterone test afterwards, and his testosterone actually went up after eating a pound of soy every day. So again, that's one person, but it's pretty clear vegans having on average higher testosterone levels than omnivores, and vegans tend to eat a lot of soy products. It's clear that it's not lowering your testosterone. And if you look at disease rates across populations, the people who eat more soy, they have less breast cancer, less ovarian cancer, less prostate cancer, less testicular cancer. So it's very protective against reproductive cancers. And I would argue that's in large part because it's somewhat inhibiting our own estrogen hormones.
So let me ask you about soy, because one of the reasons I avoid soy is just because it's in everything. And so I figure I should probably try not to add it. And so I don't actually eat tofu. Am I making a mistake?
Not at all. I mean, soy is very nutritious. In general, it's so nutritious that even something that's a little processed like tofu or soy milk is still really good for you. But you can live without it and be very healthy. I mean, there's so many other healthy plants in the world. And you're right, soy tends to be overrepresented, especially if you eat a lot of processed food. There's going to be soybean oil. There's going to be, emulsifiers made from soy. There's going to be soy fake meat and all these things. And an important part of a healthy diet is just diversity. So if you're eating a lot of soy, that's displacing a lot of other things you would be eating. So that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Probably taking out the processed foods would be the first order of business.
You're
then I
a
could
potato
eat the
head. You don't eat processed food.
No,
You
I was
never
just
eat
thinking,
processed
and it
foods.
sort of just stuck in my head. It's like a lot of things like soy is bad. And so I noticed that a lot of processed foods do have it. No, I don't eat a lot of them.
You eat whole food, plant-based diet.
So
add some edamame, please.
Yes. Okay. Will do. Now, let me also make a point, and Derek, chime in here, is that a lot of these bodybuilders who are so afraid of being estrogenized by soy do add whey-based proteins. And to me, since whey, it comes from milk of a cow who is pregnant, is that something that is estrogenized? It sounds really estrogenized, a
Absolutely.
pregnant mother.
Exactly. And again, this is from what I've read. I wouldn't call myself the definitive authority on dairy cows' hormone profiles, but from what I've read, the estrogen in cows, bovine estrogen, has a stronger effect on our bodies than our own, hominid estrogen, if you want to call it that. It binds to that same receptor that the soy does. But instead of being weaker on our bodies, it's stronger. A cow's milk has substantially more estrogens in it than a plant-based milk like soy milk would have. So you're getting a stronger estrogen. You're getting a lot more of it. And particularly, at least based on what I've read, since they've started milking cows through pregnancy, they've started pushing cows to be milking year-round, no matter what. If you have the milk from a pregnant cow, the hormone levels are 2 or 3-fold higher than they would be if that cow wasn't pregnant. So now you're getting massive, massive quantities of bovine estrogen, which do have feminizing and cancer-promoting effects on our bodies. And so it is kind of ironic that, you know, bodybuilders eating cottage cheese and drinking whey protein and things like that are afraid of soy. It's like, no, you got that backwards.
That's what people don't realize is, I mean, some people realize that their dairy products came from a cow who was pregnant, but they don't realize she's pregnant again because the industry, in order to you know, gain the yield that they want to be able to make, as she gives birth, they re-impregnate her within days while she's still, you know, producing the milk for humans. And it's like it's the hormones from afterbirth, and that's a lot of estrogen, and then she's actually physically pregnant while it's gross. But anyway, okay, so back to Miguel.
Back to Miguel.
Right.
So tofu's a good thing. What else would you recommend that he eat to help get his all the nutrients and calories too?
So this is something that I actually struggled with because I have a very fast metabolism, and when I started getting into bodybuilding, like I mentioned that conversation with Robert Cheek, I was muscular and lean, and I was like, okay, I need to gain 15 or 20 pounds of muscle, and I need to do it quickly. And so I'm not sure if you guys saw on our website, but I ended up putting together what I call my bean shake. So that was kind of my secret weight gain weapon, because there's something in the supplement industry called a weight gainer, which is basically just a really high calorie shake that has carbs, protein, and fats. So if you think about it, it's protein powder with sugar and oil added. Kind of gross. But people who have trouble gaining weight, they have that, and all of a sudden they can gain weight. So I was like, there's got to be a whole food, healthy way to pack on a lot of calories. And after a bunch of gross experiments, I found that adding white beans to a smoothie took the protein and the calories way up, didn't affect the taste necessarily. And so I was able to make really calorically dense smoothies. And that's the bottom line for Miguel, is he needs to eat a lot. So, you know, pound for pound, a vegan will have a higher metabolism than an omnivore, just for a few reasons. Fiber promotes your metabolism. Complex carbohydrates promote your metabolism. So fat tends to slow your metabolism. So, you know, if he already has a fast metabolism, eating whole plant foods, you know, if you want to consider it a drawback, most people wouldn't, is you have to eat even more. So things like the bean shake were really helpful for me. I was eating, you know, in addition to 4 big meals a day, I was having 2 of these bean shakes that were about 1,000 or 1,200 calories. The highest caloric level I ever hit was about 7,000 a day, which was pretty uncomfortable.
Wow, 7,000. Yeah, that's not easy. Most people would be like, woohoo, that sounds so fun. But after one day, probably not.
Yes.
Right?
No, after one meal, you're like, ooh, I don't want to eat anymore. It's one thing if you're doing it with pizza and birthday cake, but doing it with, you know, vegetables and whole grains and stuff, it's a different story. But, you know,
it's a lot of food is what you're saying.
I was able to gain muscle really quickly and not gain very much body fat. You know, I was training really hard, and I was in my early 20s, so you have to weigh those things in. But I was able to gain pretty close to 20 pounds of muscle in, you know, less than a year. And some fat came along with it, but not that much, surprisingly. So I had very, very good results.
Do you think that you didn't gain that much fat because you were eating whole foods, and that folks who try and gain weight end up gaining weight, but a lot of it's fat and not the muscle that they want because they're eating trash, like you said, added oils and sugars?
This item is hotly debated, but I would say yes. I think that calorically, 2 diets that are exactly the same, but one's from whole foods and one's from processed foods, the whole food diet will be less fattening. You know, you're getting so many benefits that are in the whole foods that aren't tracked when you're looking at just calories or macronutrients. Like phytochemicals is one I talk about a lot when we speak at events, when we travel, because there are so many phytochemicals. There's literally thousands in every whole plant we eat. And some of them are well studied and do dramatic healthy things for us. But a lot we don't know anything about. Like if you think of resveratrol in red wine, for example, that's known to decrease cancer risk, decrease cognitive decline, slow the aging process. But it's not an essential nutrient. You don't have to have it to live. It's just something that's in grapes. And so a lot of foods have that. I could go down the list. There's quercetin in grapefruits, for example, or there's, citrulline in watermelon. There's a whole host of these phytonutrients, and when you eat them, you have physiological benefits, and a lot of those aren't well studied. So I think eating a whole food diet, you're getting a whole lot of mystery nutrients that are going to make your body work better, recover faster.
So you and your wife have a training company where you help people get healthier, and most of them probably, or a lot of them probably want to get leaner. I know most of our audience are not probably bodybuilders, but just regular folks who want to get leaner. So what kind of tips do you have for your clients who want to eat whole food, plant-based, and get leaner? What do you tell them?
Gotcha. The first thing I tell them is strength training is really, really important, because and there's emerging research on this. It's become much more mainstream to lift weights and to strength train no matter what your goals are. But it's really true. The more lean body mass you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate is going to be. Just like if you put more horsepower into an engine, it's going to burn more fuel when you're driving around. Your body works the same way. If you work hard, if you gain muscle, even a modest amount of muscle, that's going to translate to a higher resting metabolic rate, and that's going to make it easier to stay lean year-round or to get lean. Also, consequently, people who might be dieting or might be trying to lose weight, when you go into a caloric deficit, if you're exercising or you're intentionally eating less, you're just as likely to lose muscle mass as you are body fat, because your body will break down both for fuel when it's not getting enough calories from food. If you resistance train at the same time, that will have a protective effect on your lean tissue, your muscle mass. So you will actually preserve your muscle mass and preferentially burn more body fat if you are weightlifting during a dieting process or a weight loss process. And that will not only translate to losing proportionally more fat, but it'll also mean you will have a faster metabolism once you get to whatever endpoint you get to. Because a lot of people, they go on crash diets, they lose all their muscle mass, and now they have a slower metabolism, which is not what you want.
No.
Can you talk about how important weightlifting or resistance training is to bone health? I've read that multiple times that's the number one thing to be doing for good bone health, for strong bones, to ward off osteopenia, osteoporosis, which obviously the dairy industry has us believing it's ingesting cow's milk. But really that's just because of the nutrients in it. Calcium, which we can get from a variety of different sources, tahini, almonds, bok choy, the list goes on. But I think it's so interesting that really it's in our own hands. It doesn't have to even come from the food that we eat, but how we take care of ourselves, and weightlifting and resistance training in relation to that.
Yeah, there's actually, since the early 1980s, I want to say, there's been a lot of research put out by NASA on this subject, because astronauts deal with osteopenia and osteoporosis so severely. And to show you how important it is, on the International Space Station, astronauts typically have to work out for 3 or 4 hours every day. And that's just to keep their bones from getting really, really brittle. So that, because if they didn't work out for a year up there and came back to Earth, their bones would break when they try to walk. Your bones are designed to either increase in density or decrease in density based on the load that you routinely put on them. They have, I believe it's called mechanoreceptors, that are always measuring how much work those bones are doing and then adjusting the bone density according. So people, no surprise, the people with the densest bones in the world are, world's strongest man competitors, powerlifters, things like that. They have bones made of solid rock, essentially. And then the less you do, the less weight-bearing exercise you do, the weaker your bones will get, because your body's constantly monitoring, how strong do I need to keep these bones? And if you're not constantly testing them, pushing them, your body's like, okay, I can pull these back a little bit. I don't need to keep up all this material. So resistance training is a very potent stimulus for saying, hey, we need these bones to be strong. We need them to be stable. We need them to be resilient.
And is there I lift light weights, and I know that sometimes people have said that it's important that I lift heavy weights for my bones. Are light weights okay? I still get fatigued, but just takes, 15 reps, not 8.
Sure. Light weights are better than nothing, certainly. Okay. But it is, how much does matter with regard to bone density. So heavier weight is better for stimulating bone density increases than lightweight. Your muscles might not be able to tell the difference if you work them to exhaustion with a lightweight versus a heavyweight. There's some evidence that you can get similar muscle gains regardless there, depending on what kind of program you're doing. But with bone density, at least from the bit that I've seen, a heavier weight does have a stronger effect on strengthening bones. Yeah. But of course, if you're in a situation where you already have osteoporosis or osteopenia, you want to be careful because you don't want to take a fragile bone and overload it. You want to build more slowly.
Oh, that would be a good argument for lighter, for starting lighter and for people that are dealing with that. Yeah.
How do you encourage your clients to go from an omnivore diet to a plant-based diet? What are the first couple steps that you help them with?
Well, we have two kind of businesses where we do this sort of thing. There's our online business where I am right now in Richmond, Virginia, where I call them regular people come to us, people that might not have any interest whatsoever in veganism. And I just encourage them through the health aspects. A healthier diet is going to be a more plant-based diet. It's going to have less saturated fat and cholesterol. It's going to have more fiber and nutrients, vitamins and minerals. And I coach them as far in that direction as they're willing to go. Online through veganmuscleandfitness.com, where we do online coaching, we try to exclusively work with people who are either vegan now or are looking to transition. Because obviously online there's a much bigger market. And we get a large proportion of people who are looking for help going vegan. They're like, hey, I want to go vegan. I don't know what to do. I'm in shape, or I'm an athlete and I want to stay in shape. Or, just a regular person looking to lose some weight and like, hey, I want to do it vegan. So I think that's a really important question. And the bottom line that I stress, there's no one right answer, but, building a diet based on the foundational foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans is definitely the starting point, I would say. If you need some transitional processed foods, like if you just have to have your fake creamer, not fake, but plant-based creamer, or a plant-based meat, something like that, that's totally fine, but minimize those things. Go for the whole foods. And then the main thing that we stress is give yourself time and patience. Because if you do a total dietary overhaul in one day, you might start out trying foods you really don't like, or foods that you don't like to cook, or you feel that it's hard to shop for, or whatever the case may be. Give yourself time to experiment. Give yourself to be like, hey, I never realized I really like Indian food, and there's lots of vegan dishes I can have there, and I can learn to prepare some at home. Or, hey, I was never really into beans and rice, but now I'm figuring out that I can make beans and rice 5 different ways, and I really, really enjoy it. So those are some of the things we kind of stress is give yourself time, give yourself patience. And then when it comes to those staple foods, it's really easy, like I mentioned with the beans and rice, to do them different ways by varying spices and sauces and preparation and like accompanying vegetables. Like I use the beans and rice example so much because you can do it, South African, you can do it Caribbean, you can do it Mexican, you can do it Asian, just by changing which vegetables are in there, which spice you use, or which sauce you use. And so you can have beans and rice in your cabinet all week long and eat a different meal every night. And shopping is a piece of cake because you just buy beans and rice.
So you don't.
It's very affordable.
So yeah, that too. Yeah, people who say, "Oh, it's expensive to buy lots of fresh vegetables." No, actually, you can do it,
especially if you do in season.
So also what?
Also gluten-free and soy-free.
Yes. So do you ascribe to gluten-free diets with your clients, or just for folks who have celiac?
Just for folks who have celiac or any kind of gluten intolerance. I have one client with celiac, and it's serious, so I absolutely respect that limitation. And then I have 2 other clients, in person who have a gluten intolerance to where they don't have a violent reaction like celiac, but they just notice that 2 or 3 days after eating something with gluten, they don't feel as well. So I definitely respect those limitations, but for anyone who doesn't have them, I think gluten is totally fine as part of a balanced diet.
I'm so appreciative of you mentioning the time and patience, because I think that when people hear, athletes talk specifically about whole food plant-based diet, they probably seemingly think that, athletes have this iron willpower. So, you just say that you're going to do this and you do it. And it's like, but we're not, everybody's not like that. And for some reason we live in this society that it's just like all or nothing. We do this 100% or not. And so allowing yourself to transition, allowing yourself to try 2 whole food plant-based meals a day and then just continue your other meal with what you are already eating and allow the transition to unfold and find what you like. And subscribe to all the different spices and flavors. And if you like some, great. And if you don't like others, don't buy them again. I'll hear a lot of times like, well, I just don't like blankety blank from certain, something from some certain company or certain sauce. You're like, then don't get that again. Which is what happens in, when you're eating an omnivore diet, right? It's like there's stuff you don't like and you just don't get it. And it's like just keep searching, and the journey's pretty fun. As you traverse down and your taste buds open up and these new flavor profiles come in.
Yeah, I think what Derek said about in the beginning, he was eating not that great. I think that happens to a lot of it happened to me too, is that I went immediately to the very clear substitutions for what I already was eating. And then gradually you get more healthy and add more foods in. Do you find that with your clients?
Definitely. I would say it's like anything else. It's kind of a bell curve where most people are in the middle and some people are extreme and get perfect right away. Some people are at the other extreme where they're always kind of clinging to those rich, unhealthy foods. And you have to accept that people you talk to, people you interact with are going to be that way. They're going to land all over the spectrum. With most people being in the middle where their diet, I think, will improve over time as they feel better and their tastes change. And that's one of the reasons I actually encourage people to go as whole foods and as cold turkey removing animal products as possible early on. Even though you want to be patient, give yourself time, I think that contrast of how you feel is really motivating for a lot of folks. So I would much rather have someone eat processed plant-based foods and maybe not the best diet in terms of whole foods, but eliminate the animal products just so they can get used to the change there.
So let's go back to protein, because I think one of the things that people struggle with, they don't realize how many vegan things they eat in life. All the vegetables, as long as they don't cook them in butter, are vegan. And the oatmeal, cereals, there's a lot that they...
fruits,
that they
legumes,
already,
nuts, seeds.
Exactly,
it's on so much of our
already
food.
Vegan. But then Americans especially get so caught up on protein. Well, where am I going to get my protein? I know we talked about this earlier in terms of Miguel, but you made this really interesting point in one of your blogs that Frances Moore Lepay, who wrote the book Diet for a Small Planet in the 70s, she kind of ruined it for decades. That vegetables, like you said, they have protein. And actually, ironically, Derek, her book is the one that turned me vegetarian. That was the book. I went vegetarian after reading her book.
I didn't know that.
And I wasn't concerned about protein at all, so that didn't matter. But everyone else was in the 70s. They thought I would die. But you have this great little fun fact in the book that she talks about how vegetables are incomplete proteins, and you have to blend combine vegetables, certain rice with beans to get quote unquote the total protein, to get the full proteins that your body can use. That's all been debunked, and she's debunked it. And I want you to talk a little bit about that. But also, you also say that the only truly incomplete protein is gelatin, which is actually made from animals' hooves and things. So tell us about this myth that we can't get enough protein if we eat lots of vegetables and grains and nuts and seeds.
Yeah, it is just that. It's a myth. So what she did, she was looking at the amino acid profile of different plants compared to animal proteins. And that's what I mean by that is if you take a gram of each kind of protein and you look at how many of each amino acid are in that gram of protein. And she was conveying that plants tend to have less of some of the amino acids than animal proteins do. Like, for example, lysine in corn. You may have heard that corn has very little lysine. But what's important to point out is it doesn't have no lysine. It has lysine. So the definition of complete protein is not that there's less of some amino acids, it's that they're all present or not. And since they're all present in plants, that means plants are complete proteins. You can eat plants and you will not have any deficiency in any protein or any amino acid because they're all there. And you don't have to mix and match. You don't have to perform any wizardry. You can just eat your diet and go about your life, and you'll get all the amino acids you need as long as you're getting enough total protein, which is very easy to do. And it is kind of ironic that people who have been worrying about this for so long, even though she herself debunked it about 2 years after publishing her book, I believe, she's like, oh, sorry, guys. By then it was already in medical books and everything, so it's been very much established. The irony is that gelatin, that protein that comes from animal hooves and things, it is incomplete. It's missing completely, I think, 2 or 3 amino acids. I couldn't tell you which ones, but if you were to get most of your protein from gelatin, you would die of an amino acid deficiency, which is very ironic.
Yes, it sure is. Oh,
and we had Colin Campbell on the podcast, one of your heroes as well. And I won't go into it, but it's episode 33 or something. And he completely debunks the myth of quality protein.
High quality, that meat is a high quality protein.
And that it's actually not because of the growth in the adult body to lead to cancer. So
yeah, you don't want that. You don't want high quality protein.
We just need to rename the way that it's spoken. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
When we speak about it.
It's growth promoting protein.
Yep. And we don't want that as adults.
So Derek, what do you say to your clients when they say, I don't know what to eat for breakfast if I want to eat a vegan breakfast, what could I eat? Could you give some examples of what you, your 2 kids, and your wife might eat?
Absolutely. It's like I was saying earlier, we really try to base our diet off of these foundational whole foods. And I completely give Marcella credit for making all these delicious recipes like you see on our blog, whereas I do much more bachelor cooking, which is like smoothies and sandwiches. But the fundamental thing is fruits, vegetables, whole grains, or beans. If you're eating those things, you're going to be fine. So a breakfast that I have 6 or 7 days a week, and I have for a decade now, is just oatmeal with some berries in it. I'll cook a cup and a half of oatmeal with some hot water, put some spices in it, and maybe some walnuts and blueberries, and I'm good to go. And I might change that up on the weekend. Having a fancy Sunday breakfast, I will make chocolate oatmeal, and I'll mush up bananas and put cocoa powder in there, and it'll be chocolate oatmeal. I might even go crazy and add some peanut butter. But it's very straightforward. Another thing, the kids really like cereal because all their friends have cereal. Everyone has cereal, and cereal. We just get plain shredded wheat. It's just shredded wheat squares. There's nothing fancy about it. And you get that, some soy milk and some blueberries, and it's delicious. You don't need to have Lucky Charms and Fruit Loops and things. You can just have shredded wheat if the kids want the whole cereal experience, or if they want to feel like it's easy for them to make their own breakfast. And then other than that, we do smoothies pretty often. Usually we have a smoothie in the afternoon, but we can certainly, especially on like travel days or days where everything's crazy, we'll make a smoothie to take on the road. And, that can be fruit. Sometimes we'll put something like tofu or a scoop of protein powder in there. But always greens. So you'll either have kale in it or spinach or something like that. And that's just a really quick and easy, on the run, get some nutrition in you meal. But like I said, I love oatmeal. I have it every day.
Those are great ideas. And I think, Dotsie, that we've talked about this, but I like adding, you have to cook it, cauliflower, because it's kind of like your white beans, but it adds a thickness to it. And this would be for someone who doesn't want to add as many calories, because cauliflower is pretty much just no
like
calories.
In a smoothie, you mean?
In a smoothie, and it makes it super thick, but not, you can't taste anything. Try it.
Just like white beans.
So
right?
You just cook the cauliflower, then cool it, because you don't want your smoothie to be hot, and then cool it, and then just I add like a lot. And the thicker you want it, the more cauliflower you put in. You get some, cruciferous vegetables at the same time. I'm giving Derek a tip.
Good job.
Look at me.
That's actually a great idea for bodybuilding dieting, because the whole point with that is you're cutting calories and cutting calories. And so there's all kinds of tricks like that on how to feel full without overeating calories. That's a great idea.
And how not to feel like hangry when you are so many bodybuilders, or I guess really all of them that are omnivores, are cutting their carbohydrates. I know Nimai Delgado's told me, he said, backstage, it's like they just don't understand why I'm so happy, because he's back there eating a banana and had a sweet potato for breakfast, and they have been cutting carbs for how many weeks have they been cutting carbs when you're shredding? I don't even know for omnivore.
Typically it's 10 to 16 weeks.
And you're miserable.
Yes.
But you have to have less carbs too. You just have not, you don't cut it as drastically. I mean,
they completely cut them out, right? I mean, it's almost
just the chicken, no more rice.
Right.
Chicken and broccoli.
Exactly. It's chicken and broccoli. I cut calories. So except for protein, my protein stays the same, and I'm cutting both carbs and fat just to kind of systematically cut calories. But yes, every plant-based bodybuilder I've ever talked to and athletes that I've trained for competitions, they've all kept their carbohydrates much, much higher than conventional wisdom says to. And I hear the same thing over and over again, and I've seen the same thing. It's like backstage, these bodybuilders are exhausted. They're hanging their heads. They're complaining, and they're sitting there like, I can't wait to go out and eat after this. They're just dreaming about their pizza and their cupcakes. Whereas we're like, oh, we're good. Maybe I'll get a salad after this and, go back to the gym. And it's just, yeah, I'm hungry and tired because, of course, if you're under eating and exercising a lot, you're going to get hungry. You're going to get tired. But it's just the different level. It doesn't go to your head the way that restricting carbohydrates does.
What are some tips that you have for us and the audience who want to feel full and still be cutting calories?
That's a great question, because this is, for anyone who's looking to lose body fat, this is kind of an essential thing, is you need to eat less. You don't want to cut all your calories because, like I said, you'll lose lean mass, but you want to, you do need a caloric deficit in order to lose body fat. And so the cauliflower is a great idea. There's things like riced cauliflower, or I've even heard of cauliflower pizza crust. That's usually the low carb people, but the cauliflower in a smoothie is a great idea. We do a lot of green vegetables, so that's kind of the easiest way to get bulk in your diet. We have an enormous big green salad. It's like if you picture a family-sized mixing bowl, that's how big of a salad I eat every day for lunch. So does Marcella.
That's what mine look like.
It's both on top.
Like
and so that actually just gets bigger during a diet. The salad just is like, you know what, I'll have another cucumber.
And what do you put on it? Because in the standard American diet, they might have a lot of lettuce, and then they put on the ranch dressing that adds 1,000 calories.
Yes, exactly. So that's not the goal. I always do grilled tofu. That's kind of my way of having the quote unquote chicken and vegetables, or if you think of it as just a protein. But lots of veggie toppings. So I do artichoke hearts, olives, which both of those have a little more calories from the oil that they may be in, or olives, just naturally have it. But the low calorie things like lots of tomatoes, onions, herbs like cilantro and basil, cucumbers, all things like that. And then the portion of those is just much larger during a dieting period. I'll just eat a lot of stuff like that, which has negligible calories. But if you eat enough of it, you can feel seriously full.
And what about the dressing? What do you put on this dressing?
Oh, good point. I love balsamic vinegar. I almost could drink it. I love the sharp tang. So I do a ton of balsamic vinegar and a ton of pepper on my salads, and I'm good to go there.
And you don't put oil on?
Nope, no oil.
So part of your whole food diet then is to not have processed oils.
Correct. We're not too strict on it when we go out to eat. Like if we get Ethiopian food, we like to get ethnic cuisine when we go out. So Ethiopian food or Thai food, something like that. We don't really worry about it too much, but that's maybe one meal a week or maybe two. All the meals cooked at home are oil-free.
Mm-hmm. Parents love to hear kind of how you balance the vegan kid thing when they are going to birthday parties and school functions and, well, basically just school every day too, at lunchtime. How do you guys balance that? What's your tips?
Well, there's strategies, but I first have to point out it is absolutely essential that your children know why you do this, why you're eating this way. Because otherwise, why should they not have what everyone else is having? Mm-hmm. You have to give your children a why, otherwise they don't have any personal investment in that decision. So from day one, as soon as our kids could talk, we talked about, we eat this way because we don't want to steal from animals, we don't want to hurt animals, and also it's better for our bodies. Very much use the explanation over and over again. When you take care of your toys, or you put them away versus leaving them out to get stepped on, or leaving them out in the rain and the sun, when you take care of them, they last longer. And versus if you treat them badly, they get old and broken faster. Your body works the exact same way. And I use that analogy with my kids since they could walk. And so they understand if they eat healthy, if they take care of themselves, they're going to live a longer life. You take good care of your body, it lasts longer. So they're invested in not hurting animals and taking care of themselves. And then, when they go to school, we pack a lunch and we make sure there's some snacks in there. Like as a treat, they might get a square of dark chocolate in addition to, their peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
They have a salad a day. Is that what you said?
Every single day there's a salad, yes. But, they'll have fruit. It's usually fruit in a sandwich and a salad, and then, some kind of treat. It could be like a part of a Cliff Bar. It could be a little square of dark chocolate, things like that. Not always, but most of the time. And then if they go to like a birthday party or something, we always make sure that if there's not going to be any vegan dessert or vegan item for them, that we go to the store ahead of time and get something for them. So they might go with their own cupcake to come to someone's birthday. And then when it's cake time, they say, no, thank you, I have my own. And they have both of my children have been offered non-vegan items many, many times. Like, hey, do you guys want a slice of pizza? Someone innocently not knowing that they're vegan or not, being aware. And they are always like, no, thanks, I'm vegan. Or no, thanks, I've got my own. So it's never been an issue.
That's cute. Your kids are 7.5 and 4. And so the salad a day for some parents would be like, how in the world do you get them to do that? And I noticed that kids today, they have a lot of options. I know when I was growing up, it was like, this is your dinner and this is what you're going to eat. And I didn't get asked what I wanted for breakfast, lunch, or dinner or snacks. It was like, here you go. And I know how our taste buds work. And so I'm assuming that you've just been giving them these foods since the beginning, since they could start, chewing and swallowing, and that maybe they did or didn't love each one in the beginning, but that's what they were going to eat. That's what you gave them. And I'm wondering if maybe parents didn't give so many choices to their 3-year-olds, they would very much love bell peppers and carrots and beets and kale, because it's like, well, if you're hungry, you're going to eat. I mean, you just are, right? Like any mammal.
Well, there's also the neurotaste adaptation that we've learned about, that you get used to foods that you might in the beginning. Now, Derek, tell us about that, because you're nodding your head.
And we talk about this in lectures often. It's the bottom line is you like what you're used to. And that's true of any human anywhere. You could take a food you hate, and if you ate it every day for a month, you'd start to be like, oh, that's not bad. Your body is very much programmed to prefer the things that it has all the time. Kids are the same way. But it's funny you mentioned how your parents used to be, or as a generational change. We very much have, if you want to call it, an old-fashioned attitude. It's like, this is your food. We're not going to throw away this food so that you can eat something else. That's not going to happen. We expect them to have the healthy foods that we give them, and we explain why. We're like, this food is going to help you live longer and not get sick when you're older. So, like at lunch, especially with the 3-year-old or when she was 2, that was often a battle. She'd be like, I don't want to eat my lettuce. Can I have something else? And she might be asking for cantaloupe or, nothing brutally unhealthy, but she just didn't want to eat those vegetables or those spinach leaves. And we say, yeah, as soon as you're done with that salad, you can have something else. And that's kind of where it ends. It's like, you're not going to eat anything else until you eat this. And like you said, we're mammals. We got to eat. And eventually you're going to be hungry and you're going to eat that thing, and then you're going to move on. And after a year or two of, occasional battles, it's just what we do. It's just normal.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to meeting your kids when they are adults, healthy, vibrant adults, right? Eating vegan,
absolutely.
Like hopefully most of the world at that time.
There you go.
Future, right?
There you go.
Derek, thank you so much for exactly. Cross our fingers.
We're doing the same thing.
Yeah. For those of you listeners who are not on YouTube, Derek just crossed his finger, and so did Dotsie. So, Derek, thank you so much for being on our show. We really appreciate it. You've really shared so much valuable information for us. Tell us all where people can find you, your ebook.
Sure.
Social media,
yeah.
Of course. You can find all the information you might be looking for on our website, which is veganmuscleandfitness.com. That's AND, vegan muscle and fitness, all spelled out, .com. That has links to our YouTube channel. It has links to our blog. It has links to our in-person personal training studio here in Richmond, Virginia. If you're looking for that, it's called Brute Force Personal Training. And you can find us on social media. On Instagram, we're at Vegan Muscle and Fitness. And on Facebook and Twitter, we're at Vegan Muscle. So you can find us on there if you're looking for anything. And as you mentioned, my ebook, our ebook, is available on how to gain muscle and lose body fat on a whole food plant-based diet. That's available on our website as well. So, if anyone's interested, give us a shout.
Amazing.
I'm sure people will be. Thank you so much, Derek.
Thank you for having me. It's been a
So
pleasure.
good. Have a good one.
You too.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good,
please visit us at switch4good.org for loads of info, and you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to Switch for Good. This is the future.